Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to rip the tape off and we're just going to dive right in. And apparently Stabby was going to make it today and she missed the train, so she's going to log in a few minutes late. But Nick said that right as I hit the record button and it was just too late. So expect her to pop in the floating head of awesomeness later. But with that out of the way, first, we're just going to go round robin. We're going to let our guests introduce themselves to our listeners and viewers at home. We're having a lot of fun. I'm highly caffeinated. It's a good day. Melissa, all right, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
Hi, I'm Melissa McShane. I am the author of many fantasy novels in many fantasy subgenres, including historical fantasy and contemporary fantasy. And I am coming to you from India, where it is a beautiful morning, very hazy, very misty, and very pretty. And we are actually a day ahead of you, so we are celebrating Diwali, the Festival of Lights. So that's where we are. Yeah.
So one of these days from the future, you're going to have to tell us what the winning lottery numbers are so we can hook it up.
Well, you know, I would, but they're the Indian lottery, so, you know, no luck there.
Oh, well, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
You ready for this, James? Mr. J.E. Pittman.
Hey, everybody. J.E. Pittman here. You can just call me James. I write the Felix Chance Urban Fantasy series. Speaking of luck, it is his greatest skill. So, Melissa, just slide me those numbers. We'll get some synchronicity going. I also write the Pandora Squad action military sci-fi series, and super glad to be here talking about Galaxy Quest today.
Oh, freaking standing next, we have, wait for it, because he's back, and his name is what his name is, we have to do it this way, but Mr. M.D. Bouchard.
Oh, what, with a U now? Come on now. Clean up your act. If you're going to mock it good.
I can't do the same every time. Like, what's the fun in that? I got to do it a little bit different each time.
Oh, okay. I see how you're going to be. Anyway, I'm D. Boncher. I am the author, creator of the Akinawazi Saga, Dark Epic Fantasy, and Tales from the Dream Nebula, which I lovingly call Pulp Punk. Mashup of all the pulp style from the 1920 sci-fi to the 2020 punks. And so those are my two series that I have out currently, and working on a whole bunch of short stories that seem to rattle around a lot of these lately.
That I can definitely understand. All right, next, we have the many personalities of Miss Jana S Brown.
Hi, guys. I am Jana S Brown, but I write my speculative fiction under the pen name Jena Rey. I write science fiction, urban fantasy, and dabble in all sorts of other things. And then I write romance under another pen name, and then I'm an editor. So I do a little bit of all of it, and I'm very excited to talk about Galaxy Quest today.
Do you have a new pen name for your editing? Like, do you give yourself a really cool name?
No, that's all under Jana S Brown. That goes with the nonfiction.
I mean,
nonfiction editing, it's all businessy stuff.
You could do like Aloysius Editrix. That would be a cool name for an editor.
Yeah, see, it would have to be something along the lines of making writers cry. Wait, I'm not supposed to say that out loud. That was the inside voice.
The word you're looking for is called editor. That's what makes writers cry.
Yeah.
I actually, when I got my first professional edits back, I wrote a blog about it back when I still maintained a blog. Now I just like post stuff on the website instead. Because that's a lot less work, but I called it Tears of Blood, or How I Learned to Bend Over and Take It Like a Man. That was my first experience with editing. So it was brutal the very first time. Apparently, academic writing and fiction writing were so vastly different that I had to relearn everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very different.
Yep.
Actually, I'm a kind of different editor for the most part, but anytime you turn back that screen and it's got red marks all over it, especially with a writer that you're their first editor, I just got a babbling message from somebody today going, but I thought it was good. It's like, it is good. It's very good. It's just, you're very young and you're very new to this, and we're going to help you work through this. I'm going to quit. No, you're not. So we'll get in there.
It happens. Like you said, you got a stiff drink of bourbon or something to hold you over for that first edit. That's what Nick does, right, Nick? All right. So
Why do authors drink?
I
There's
can
my
tell you,
new
I
pen
call
name.
it's the Hemingway approach. I figured like some of the best ideas I ever had was after I was a couple of bourbons in, which I guess is probably the same for like stoners, potheads, but it makes more sense with booze because just, I don't know, it brings the brain together and just like, that's a good
Longer
idea.
track record.
Yeah.
My favorite is the new meme that I saw and we recently shared on our podcast. Recently, like we're airing this episode at the end of November and recording it at the end of October. So you got to scroll back a little bit. I share lots of memes, but there's this guy standing in front of a chalkboard with like all kinds of calculus equations. And it's like me trying to figure out what I wrote in the middle of the night with my brilliant idea.
Oh yeah.
I actually have had a tape recorder by my bedstand because, you know, if you wake up with ideas, you just dictate it, you're good to go. And I listened to it in the morning, and I don't know what meth I was tweaking, but it wasn't the good stuff.
If you were sleeping, it wasn't meth. You got into the barbiturates again.
Yeah.
We saved that for Nick when he busts all the people and takes away all their drugs.
Okay.
I haven't done that in a long time. I've taken away a lot of people's boats recently.
Can I have one of them if they don't need it anymore?
Oh,
is that how that works?
You don't want them, man.
Oh, okay.
It's like we auction off the engines and we crush the vessel.
Ooh.
Because the engines are more expensive than the boat.
All right, and now we're going to move on to the religion questions. Stabby and Nick, you're going to go last, so you have time to think of your answers because you didn't get the pre-show time. But since you've all been here before, you're frequent guests on the show, I thought we would mix it up a little bit. So which TV show do you think deserves another season or a sequel? All right, Melissa.
Okay, I get to go first, so I get to say Firefly, but I think everyone should be allowed to say Firefly if they want. Sorry, Nick. I got but I think that's pretty much a general consensus that show died way too young. So that one needs. In fact, I would be satisfied with either a reboot or a second series or a sequel. Either way, I think that would be interesting. I liked that universe.
Yeah, I like the brown coats, like the idea of sticking it to the man. Like, who doesn't want to, shake your fist at the sky and tell the tyrants to go to hell?
Yes.
I mean, we've got a whole country founded on that basic idea. So,
Yep, it feels.
I think it's in our DNA. All right,
Serenity.
Serenity was good too. Yeah. All right, James J.E. Pittman.
You know, we've talked a lot about it before. You know, JR and I have the same opinion. I think Stargate Universe deserves another season just to get us off that cliffhanger, first of all. Ignore the graphic novel. And second, I think the show would do a lot better in today's audience than it did at the time.
Okay, so I'm still bitter about that goddamn graphic novel. They promised us
about it.
Stargate Universe. You'll get a sequel, guys. Buy the graphic novel. So I spent $50-something to buy it on launch day in the glossy, expensive version, and it ended in a mother effing cliffhanger. And then there was then it's like, to be continued. Yeah, did they? No.
Nope. That's just wrong.
I'm not still bitter or nothing.
No.
Well, let me calm down before my heart explodes. Nick knows how that feels, and I don't want to do that. All right, Mr. Indy Boncher.
Okay, TV show that deserves another season or a reboot. I'm still going to go with Farscape. It was supposed to have a final season, but the idiots at Safi, whatever they call themselves with the wrong letters, because they don't know what they are doing. They canceled the show before they could complete that last season, and then we got the Peacekeeper Wars miniseries, which I haven't been able to bring myself to watch yet because it just hurts too much. So, Farscape, last season.
That is an excellent answer, and it was on my short list. So, I approve.
My other one I bumped because I felt this is more pressing.
What was your other one? You can list more than one.
Battlestar Galactica, or the tie for that was 1979 Buck Rogers.
What is it about Buck Rogers?
Well, dude, other than before Flash Gordon, he was king of sci-fi pulps back then. I mean, he was
Twiggy.
Yeah, Twiggy was great. Mel Blanc basically made that character, and Felix Siwa did a great job with acting in that little tin can of a soup. But it has a certain amount of narm that goes for it, you know. There's a certain charm to it that well, let's face it, every boy at that era had fallen completely head over heels for Aaron Gray, and a lot of the women were swooning over Gil Gerard. Unfortunately, like all Glenn A. Larson productions, they don't know what to do with it and freak out and cancel the whole thing on him after they send him a list of catastrophic reasons or notes from the producer level to change it. That wrecks it and makes everybody go, what were you on? And why did you do these terrible things to what was working just fine? So that's sort of why I would toss that in there. Unfortunately, the attempts to remake it have been cringy at best, but I'd really love to see it if it could be done right. I think it really could be a marvelous show yet. And come on now, Pamela Hemsley as Princess Ardala, just slinking around the TV screen as that petulant, problematic princess. Ooh, alliteration. She was just an awesome foil for Buck. So
absolutely. So first we're going to say that obviously we would want these to be redone right. So, you know, we don't want modern Disney or modern Fox, because Fox Entertainment's where good shows go to die. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Terra Nova. Jana, which series do you think deserves another season or a sequel?
I would go with Angel, because it kind of ended in a place where I still had a lot of questions. There's a few things in the seasons that exist that I wish they just joined out, because there was some really questionable storytelling. But when you put together the best parts of it and where it was going, I want more than the dragon's mine is where it ends. And I'm like, well, but I want to see that particular fight. Thank you. So I would like to see the actual face off with Wolfram and Hart. And we only got the lead up to, and I would like to see that arc close itself. So they needed another season for that.
I agree totally, but you also have to respect the tongue-in-cheek way they ended the series when they knew they were getting canned. They're like, all right, stick it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I give them that, because there was so much weirdness around it. Again, you know, Fox and WB and Joss Whedon, and there's so many things we could get into there that we won't. But I do have questions there that I would love to see in a sequel or a new season.
All right. So for me, I would say obviously Pittman and I agree that Stargate Universe deserves another season. We want answers, damn it. I am also with Nick on Team Andromeda, because that was just an awesome show. I mean, come on, you had Hercules as a ship captain. How awesome was that? But also Terra Nova, because they left us hanging, and it was such an awesome series. And it wasn't even lack of viewership that canceled that one. It was the price of production. And I would like to think that with the technology having improved, we could probably lower what it costs to make that with the green screen and the CGI and stuff from what they were paying back then. Because they even said it. It's just the cost per episode was through the roof just because of the effects.
Dinosaurs are expensive.
Yeah. In fantasy, you hear authors tell you that if you put a dragon on the cover, it doubles the price of the artwork. I imagine that's true in movies when you add dinosaurs. So, all right, Nick, since you had time to think about it, we're going to give Stabby last place, and you're going to let you go next.
All right. Well, I mean, you saved the best for last. That's Stabby over there. And so since Firefly was already taken, and we've already discussed Andromeda and some other things, I'm going to go with Mindhunters.
Oh. Which one is that?
Oh my God. I think I stole somebody's thunder.
What? If you're listening at home, she's shooting him the evil eye, and he might be sleeping on the couch.
Oops.
Dirty looks.
Ooh. So, what is mind? Is it mind? M-I-N-D or M-I-N-E? Like mind?
Mindhunters. It's about the behavioral analysis unit when it started in the late 60s, early 70s in Quantico, where they were going after serial killers.
Yikes.
That's where they coined the term serial killer. They were calling them all kinds of other shades. It only got 2 seasons. Definitely deserved more because there's a lot more serial killers that they interviewed. But
so is it a fiction
Stabby.
series or is it a documentary?
It's a fiction. It's a fictionalized series of true events.
Okay. Right.
Docudrama.
There we go. Docudrama. I was going to say fiction drama, but that just sounded.
I've heard documentary as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Stabby.
It's not that. Hold on, let me mute.
He stole my answer. He stole my answer. I was holding out so hard. It is Mindhunter. I'm sorry, but they didn't give us all the information. Like, seriously, they really didn't. So there was not only a whole bunch more serial killers that they did interview in their time with the FBI, but also the backstory behind the one agent. His wife up and moves away with his son, and then it's just like, season done. You'll find out what happens with his wife and crazy son later, and then there's just nothing. There's so many questions that needed to be answered, not just with the serial killers, but also with, the family aspect. And I want those answers
So what you messed up on, Stabby, is you didn't say swiper, no swipey. Because clearly.
Oh. I didn't even tell him my answer. That tells you how much we've had this conversation. We've talked about this so much. Because I rewatch Mindhunter at least twice a year. I really do enjoy it. I love when they talk to Ed Kemper and Ed Kemper starts like stalking the one FBI agent. I love when they talk to Manson. I have a good time with all of it. And I rewatch it, and at least twice a year, I'm like, man, they need to reboot this or just give us the next season. They need to do something with this because there's so many unanswered questions.
Okay. Speaking of unanswered questions, let's move on to which TV show deserves a reboot. And we are going to go with Melissa again first. We're just going to go round robin.
Okay. I'm going to go with Red Dwarf. I think they did some really good performances, but I would really like to see what could be done. Well, first with modern production values, because, they did all right for the time, but it was British TV. So whatever. But
could you recast Lister?
Exactly. See, I don't know. I think I would like to live in the magical universe where I could have those actors with new production values and new scripts, because toward the end of the show, they got some really dumb scripts, but yeah, Red Dwarf is my choice for a reboot.
Okay. Mr. M.D. Boncher. A little bit different this time. See?
Ooh, this is
Pittman.
TV show. This is a
TV
show for a reboot.
Yeah.
Oh, TV show for a reboot? Okay, then I'm going to take my other answer I posted in the private chat, and that's Max Headroom. Max Headroom was so far ahead of its time, and it was canceled literally because they freaked out the executives at NBC and BBC because they were pointing the camera right at what was going on in the boardroom and turning it into shows. And they went, we cannot have this on the air. We cannot have this on the air now. We got to cut. And it only
they panicked
because of that. They got 1.5 seasons. I think that was it. Mm-hmm. I will say this: the original BBC TV movie actually is superior in several cases. And the best thing they got, other than bringing Matt Frewer over, and you think about how much of a cultural impact that show actually was. Most people don't realize that the cultural impact came from this show. They just think Pepsi commercials, Coke commercials with Max Headroom and other things like that, and quirky TV appearances. But the show itself is so deep. It's the show that created the media class in Cyberpunk 2013 when that role-playing game came out. It turned the journalist into a practical superhero of that time. But that done with virtual reality nowadays, because that show was envisioning the idea of downloaded personalities into a virtual matrix. Nowadays, Max Headroom just could be amazeballs.
Okay. What about you, James?
You know, like Melissa said, if I could bring the cast back and do it up to date, I would love that version. But Briscoe County Jr. Think about a weird Western today.
Yes.
A weird Western today would be so amazing.
Steampunk
And you
weird
still have
West.
Bruce in there.
Stole my fucking answer. I thought I was pulling out of obscurity. Here's Pittman out of fucking left field.
Hey.
Briscoe County Jr. I'm like, son of a fuck.
I'm glad you said it. I thought I was like the only fan of Briscoe County Jr. in the world. I was so sad.
I think they're all on this podcast right now.
Bruce Campbell as a goddamn
Bruce Campbell, enough said.
Mm-hmm. What is Briscoe County Jr.? I've never even heard of it.
Oh my gosh!
Well, now you have fun.
It was on Fox.
It was on
Good
Fox.
shows go to fucking die.
Okay.
I have the box set. Hey Nick, if it makes you feel better, I'll do his other masterpiece, Jack of All Trades.
Oh, yeah. You asshole.
Briscoe County Jr. had the same kind of vibe in my brain as Wild West.
Yeah.
It was exactly Wild Wild West, except they weren't Martians. It was future tech and a
Yep. It was a future tech. It was a weird Western.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cowboys and aliens and you know all that fun stuff.
All right, Jana.
All right, so now I'd actually go two directions because if we're reaching back, I think rebooting Fantasy Island would be really, really interesting.
Oh, not like they did too. So yes, I'm
right.
No, not like they did, but completely rebooted as a television show because it had some interesting things going on. It had a lot of what is real and what isn't. So it was really magical realism. It didn't go all the way into paranormal. It didn't go into other places, but it was very much a magical realism kind of show. And I would be really interested to see what could be done with that in a really, really, really great writers that property could reboot in an interesting way. The other one is going back to Battlestar Galactica. I actually liked the beginning of the reboot. About that first season, it has some really excellent episodes. The 33 minutes episode is still one of my absolute favorites. The pilot itself was fantastic. You know, with Adama going down there and ripping through the velvet cords and saying, it seems that I have raptors right here. It's like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. So that first bit, yes, but when it turned into a relationship drama, that was when I wasn't with it anymore. So I would take the first season and a half as was and reboot everything from there to the end. And make it the way that it should have been, not the garbage it turned into.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
All right. So if I'm gonna pick a reboot just because I love the concept so much, it's gonna be Primeval, and I would accept the UK version because they had a series, or Primeval New World, which was kind of roughly Boston but filmed in Canada. Because why wouldn't you film Boston in Canada? But I really love the concept. Is basically the idea behind it. If you don't know. Is all of the cryptid sightings are actually ancient creatures that come through time anomalies. And so this whole team is going around closing the time anomalies. And it's not the government that does it. It's just this random rich dude who decides to use his money for good. Go all Elon Musk, but instead of shooting to Mars, he closes time loops.
Nice.
Cool.
Which I really loved. They canceled it way too soon. It didn't get nearly enough seasons. And if they had given me 100 seasons, I probably would have said we needed 101. So, Nick, are you ready to steal Stabby's thunder again?
No, I already told her my answer, and then Pittman stole my answer, so now I know how it feels. And to be honest, I'm probably gonna fucking do it again too. But I'll do it again. It's like that meme of Goofy, like, I'll do it again. No, it wasn't a sneeze. Okay, so a series that needs to be rebooted or redone.
Yes.
Jesus, man.
That's a lot of them after 2000.
There's tons of them. Man. I don't know if it would be like redone, but more of a spin-off. The other hunters in Supernatural.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
because there's so many of them. I mean, I know
Yeah.
the Winchesters are, God mode, and they're the divine of that community. But I would really like to see a series, and it could just be an anthology series. Like every other episode could be like a new team, of all the hunters and some of the weird stuff they were encountering. And then you could definitely place it into the events during Supernatural to like tie everything together. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, the one that got me was that redheaded chick whose mom owned the bar who didn't want her to go. Like, I feel like
she got smoked.
Yeah, they had like a window where she was off grid. Nobody knew where she was. I just kept thinking there has to be a story there that would be pretty badass.
Yeah, and there were so many spin-off opportunities, like the sheriff, up in Montana. Like you could have done that. Yeah. Then you start getting into like Eureka territory, which is kind of cool. It still kind of fits. Like I would have dug a Supernatural show that had a Eureka vibe. Just weird stuff that happens in weird places, So
Warehouse 13?
Warehouse 13. Yeah, I mean, those are good ones too.
They crossed over and did that kind of stuff.
Torchwood, I guess.
The episode in Supernatural, the Croatoa, where they basically they explained what happened to the Lost Roanoke colony by saying it was like this demonic thing that took over. Like what happened in that town before they got here could be its own miniseries.
Oh, absolutely. So I guess it doesn't need to be a full ongoing series. Like there's some miniseries that I really like out of like multiple series or other established series. Supernatural, I think you have so much to work with in that world that you could do a spin-off where it was almost like you could do it like Tales from the Crypt or Creep Show or that type of vein, and it would be very interesting and people would watch it, I think. Because they're making a Supernatural movie, I'm just saying.
Okay. What about you, Stabby? Series deserves a reboot.
So I'm actually going to go animated with this one. We've all seen reboots of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers 1.5 million times, but nobody has touched the Gargoyles.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
I love the Gargoyles.
That's being worked
live
on.
Action.
I think Gargoyles getting a reboot would be so much fun. I loved that cartoon as a child. I think that one would be so much fun. And with the CGI we have now, even going live action with it, I think that would be a fun one to play with.
Yeah, I agree.
I could
Don't do what ABC did to it the last season when they got it.
You just made me remember another TV show that I think would be awesome, but it's not a sci-fi show.
Oh, go ahead. You can throw it out there. We got a second.
Tales of the Golden Monkey. The show the idea was taken by Disney and perverted into what we now lovingly call Tailspin.
Yep.
The live action version was the first series done, or one of the first series done by Belisario, and it was the most expensive show at the time because it was the first one shot on location in Hawaii since Hawaii 5-0.
Yep.
And it is an absolutely awesome film that was designed to take over and grow the whole sort of Indiana Jones myth, except set in the South Pacific with a seaplane and the Japanese and German spies, and they're all looking for a giant golden monkey that has heat-resistant gold statue of it, and it is just the epitome of high concept, high adventure of that era, and would have dovetailed great, but the NBC executives killed it because it was costing in early 1981, 82, it was costing over $1 million per episode to do. Yeah, that'd be like having them that'd be like a $5 million episode nowadays. And they did it with all practical effects. And so
you mean The Acolyte?
But it was an astonishingly good film. And what's funny is when they canceled the show, both other networks, CBS in particular, I think it was, it was one of the networks, the head of programming threw a party the day they canceled that show because they knew that whatever time slot that show was in was going to eat their lunch for years. But the execs at the network couldn't see past the numbers, and it withered and died.
At least we got Tailspin out of it.
True, and you can still buy the original TV series on DVD set.
Yep.
All right.
I love Tailspin. You had Baloo in there. I mean,
yeah.
All right. Now we're going to move on to movies that deserve a sequel. We're going to start with you, Melissa.
Okay, mine is kind of a cheat because I'm pretty sure this movie will get a sequel, but I want to see a sequel to the latest Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and I want to see it where they have all the same actors playing different characters, just like it's an episode of a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game. That's what I want to see.
That would be awesome.
I mean, I'll be happy with whatever they do so long as they recreate that magic. But that I think that would be really fun if they leaned into that, kind of like the gamers, with Darkness Rising, where it's all the same actors and they're just playing a new series of the game. So that's what I want to see.
That movie deserves so much more love. I love that idea.
All right, what about you, James?
Well, I'm going to roll mine into one. I want to see a reboot and a sequel from the John Carter series.
Yeah.
Because that was so poorly handled. It had so much potential, and they just flubbed it. They flubbed it on the advertising. They flubbed it on the reshoots and the re-edits. They flubbed it on the storyline.
I enjoyed that movie. Taylor Kitsch was awesome.
Taylor Kitsch was great, but it could have been so much better. And can you imagine a full John Carter of Mars trilogy
series? Yeah.
If they would have done it right, that would be so awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Mr. M.D. Boncher?
Now there's no why. What the hell, dude?
You can be replaced by a puppy, and it don't have to be cute, neither. All right.
We're talking a Shar-Pei with a shaved ass. That's what we're talking about.
That walks on its front legs only. I would have to say I wasn't prepared for the sequel thing so much, but I'm going to say the one that'll never be, and that is the 1980 Flash Gordon.
Oh.
I mean, let's face it, you don't have Max von Sydow. Sam Jones is definitely not coming back. And the most of all is you don't have that.
Sam Jones will jump on.
That's true. And they've taken 2 shots now at trying to revitalize it, and muy no bueno. But I will say that the one star from that you'd need to get back is the production designer that basically went, I'm going to do what I'm going to do to all of the production notes and gave us those whacked out of their minds wonderful sets and special effects that were produced that makes that movie have that kitschy comic book feel. If you can find something that gets that, or even the first season of the Flash Gordon cartoon that came out the year before, wonderful. Otherwise, no tachi.
All right, what about you, Jana?
So, okay, I got the reboot that I wanted, so I just went and saw Transformers 1, and I loved it, all the big hearts. And that was the reboot that I wanted, because the Bay movies, the first one was tolerable, and most of the rest did very, very.
So we're not actually doing reboots right now. We're talking about movies that deserve.
I know, but that's it's connected.
Okay.
Bear with me here, because I got what I wanted, but the sequel is what I want next. So I loved what they did. I got the reboot that I wanted. Now I want the sequel to it, because they've set it up very nicely. There's sequel territory there. There's space for a lot of really great storytelling, but they needed the reboot to get it to where it would have a really great sequel. So mine's all rolled up. See, I'm answering both questions at once. I'm being efficient.
Woo! Yay, efficiency. All right. So for me, I would say obviously Serenity deserves a sequel. And
go with that.
Enemy Mines. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Oh, yes.
Gossett Jr., the man.
Oh, yeah. He passed away.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could get the same actors, but what you could do is
Michael B. Jordan. That's who they replaced most guys. So.
But yeah, I love that movie. Like turns expectations on its head. It was ahead of its time. Still a classic. Still worth watching.
Oh, yeah.
Novelization is good.
Pretty sure it's the
Novelization
beginning of the trans
excellent.
movement.
I'm going to have to check that out. I don't know why I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, are you ready for this? Which show deserves a reboot?
No.
Or sequel, excuse me.
Movies
See, you messed me up, Jan, on the
or-
order.
Okay, so I'm conflicted.
I win.
They're both 1930s serials and comic books.
Ooh.
So on one hand, The Phantom with Billy
Okay.
Zane. Love that movie. Probably one of my favorite serial movies that didn't get as much love as it needed to. On the other hand, The Shadow.
The Shadow.
I would love to see
So-
that come back.
So those
Yeah.
are two. I don't know if it's allowed. I get to choose two. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
we
cheating
can
every-
do it. I got room on the show notes, man. We're good.
Okay. So I would love to see The Shadow and The Phantom. And if you wanted to have peanut butter on one hand and jelly in the other and put your hands together to do a Phantom Shadow crossover, I think that would be cool as shit.
Yeah.
Just do the Four Kings while you're at it.
And if I ever get licensed to any of those properties, I'm making that damn comic book.
Mm.
So what Nick's saying is he's not going to tell you if he gets like FU money and wins the lottery, but there will be signs.
There will be signs. You'll realize it when I announce that I'm either doing an HBO or Netflix series of the Shadow Phantom crossover, you know, and or a comic book comes out and like it's probably headed by IDW or some bullshit low property publisher
All right.
like them. So yeah, that's my answer, and yeah, I'm gonna have dreams about that.
All
right.
Go home.
Stabby, while he dreams, which show do you think deserves a sequel? Which movie?
I have 4. I
Okay.
have 4. And they all need sequels. Up,
Okay.
because I think they could have done so much with the bird and the little boy, and it just seems like it would be so much fun. Ratatouille, come on, a rat cooking in the kitchen. That would be so much fun to see a sequel to. Of course, I have to lean on my Goonies because I think that the Goonies definitely deserved a sequel.
Goonies never die.
Goonies don't get sequels.
Goonies never die.
My Goonies should have got a sequel. And my very last one, and this one, I think you guys are all going to love this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today. Galaxy Quest.
Yes, the
Galaxy
continuing
Quest.
adventures.
That would have been good. Yep.
Sequel.
If you made that sequel to Goonies in 1987 to 89, I would agree with you. Otherwise, do not touch something that is so perfect.
It is perfect, but I think it deserved a sequel. Now it would just be a reboot or them as adults with their kids.
Yeah, it'd be
being
like the next
Goonies.
generation. Now.
They had
Yeah.
one on the production starting blocks, and they killed it because of the fan backlash. They were going to do it.
First, the guy that was the Truffle Shuffle dude is like straight jacked now, and he does motivational videos to help people like get in shape.
And he's an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he was the Truffle Shuffle so long that he decided he was going to turn that around. Talk about subverting expectations. And I remember watching that with my nephews, and they're like, "How come their parents aren't there watching them?" I'm like, "Because it was the '80s, man. It was a magical time."
80s.
Like,
parents
We
were not
raised
there.
ourselves. This is why
Yes.
Gen X is feral.
Mhm.
oh.
All I'm
So that's-
saying is those 4 deserve sequels, absolutely. But I mean, Goonies would have to be a next generation, and
Mhm.
Galaxy Quest would have to go on without our good friend.
So before we move on to the next question, we got to do it. Hey, you guys! That dude was like stealing the show. He was awesome.
Stole it all.
All right, and which movie deserves a
Have Goonies
reboot?
without
Jen has already
Swan.
answered. So, Pittman, you're next because I'm going to use the alphabet this time.
Well, I already said the John Carter. You know,
Mhm.
redo
Okay,
it,
reboot the sequel.
reboot the whole thing, do it
And
properly
sequel.
this time. Get Taylor to do it
Mhm.
again.
Yeah.
Melissa, which one deserves a reboot?
The Never-Ending Story. I know there's a lot of nostalgia surrounding that, but
Why do
I
you want
think
to reintroduce that trauma? Like, why?
Well, see, that's just it. That's just
Boomers
it. There
need
shouldn't
it.
have been that kind of trauma. It should have been different, and that's why I want it to be a reboot.
They had no business going that hard with the horse getting lost into quicksand.
Absolutely, they did not.
I believe Gen Alpha needs some toughening up. Yes, I agree with this.
I actually shared a meme on their Twitter account where they had some, because we're recording this right the day before Halloween, where some kid, that was their costume, was like they were dragging the horse out of the quicksand. Yeah. And I got people sending me like personal emails about how wrong that was, and I traumatized them, and that wasn't okay, that they needed trigger warnings. I'm like, I know you don't buy into any of that.
If you need a trigger warning, your bloodline is weak and your ancestors look down on you.
Well, no. But the dudes that were doing that were the ones that would normally say that with you, but they make an exception for the never-ending story.
No, I mean, it was traumatizing, but I think it shaped an entire generation of loss.
Well, yes. Mm-hmm. But that's why we need a reboot for this generation. I'm not saying get rid of the original. I'm saying do it again and do something different. The book is very different from the movie, by the way. I mean, German fantasy is just weird, but it did a lot of things that I think they could draw on for a rebooted version of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, if you've read any of the original fairy tales from Grimm, you know that it's weird.
Oh yeah, this is they were all clearly they were all clearly influenced by years of weird fairy tales, but German fantasy is very strange. So.
Absolutely. All right, Boncher.
Oh, okay. For a reboot, and once again with the caveat of if you do not screw it up by making it for modern audiences, agendas, or anything else, I have basically a two-way Disney tie. Number one, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Disney's only, or rather first attempt at doing horror, freaked out, didn't know what to do with it, and tried to back out of it. And Ray Bradbury held their feet to the fire, and they put it through, but tried to slip it out the door and away.
Scary as shit, though.
Oh, yes, yeah. It is. Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But that's what makes it beautiful, because you think of the actors. One of my favorite horror scenes of all times is Mr. Dark with the father, blanking on his name, played by Jason Robards, in the library where he says that line, by the pricking of my thumb, something this way this comes. And that scene where he is going and tearing away layers of his possible regeneration of life. And you're like, oh, it is one of the, I don't think you could beat it. But
the only way it can be outdone is if you get the director from It, the remake part 1 and 2, to do it, because he knows that genre.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he would kill that. He would just nail that.
Would be marvelous. But that is tied with my other Disney.
Take my money.
And that is The Black Hole. To see the sickness redone and to get some of the little action sequences cleaned up. But I just rewatched today because I got a review talking about how he wants to see spaceships look different than the sterile gray bland hotel of Star Trek. He wants to see something really unique, and I just put that the flyby of the Cygnus by the Palomino, and that if you saw in the theater when that thing suddenly flared into golden light, you're just like, whoa, that's scarier than the black hole right over there. So I mean, that movie, it has some weak points that really kind of drag it down, but that ending with Maximilian and Dr. Reinhardt, which they almost completely ad-libbed, is just astonishing. But I would love to see that redone as something in modern technology, if you can even find actors close enough to pull those roles.
Right.
Yeah, we've actually reviewed that as one of our retro movie reviews, The Black Hole. It is an excellent movie. And
I didn't know. I missed it.
Jana back. I know for me, first, we were talking in the side chat, so I'm just going to throw it out there. So if you want to talk about like emotionally, destructive movies that just are books that just hit you, for me, it would be always Where the Red Ferns Grows. You're right, Nick. Oh. Old Yeller and The Bridge to Terabithia. Why'd she have to die? Oh, that was just those will get
you. Just overlooked the Ethan Frome damage which was so bad that it got brought up in Gross Point Blank.
Gross Point Blank, yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, yes, so much yes.
I've never read any of those.
Oh my God,
there's several of them my kids will not
You have homework now. You have homework now. Be traumatized like the rest of us.
Yeah, just walking around as a traumatized Gen Xer. I guess that's.
I mean, it's what we do.
Same thing twice.
Yeah.
Gen X drama.
So for me, as far as reboots go, only because I want them to be able to do a sequel and I need all of the actors to be alive for it, would be The Last Starfighter. I mean, I think that you could do a sequel if you just pump it forward and have somebody play the guy that was the last Starfighter, play an older version of him. You know, now he's the commander. You could get away with replacing the actor that way.
That dude is still alive, and he is completely down.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah,
but Robert
he said that multiple interviews that if you do that, you bring it to me, I will do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted the reboot only because I wanted a sequel, and I thought that might be the only way. So, all right, what about you, Nick? Which is going to get the reboot?
I'm going to jump on the bandwagon here and just agree with you on The Last Starfighter. I think that would be a phenomenal film, especially with the time that's elapsed since the original. You could totally do that in a way that was new and brought in new fans and maybe create a new Star Wars-esque type environment, because that's how they promoted it. This was the film that Star Wars fans were waiting for 2 years after Return of the Jedi. But if we're talking about reboots, as much as I see The Last Starfighter, TV series, I would like to see. No,
it's reboot movie. We did the TV series already.
Reboot movies? Okay. Oh, shit. Okay, then I'm going to go with that. I'm going to just piggyback on your answer.
All right, Stabby, what about you? Which movie are you going to reboot?
I have 4.
Of course you do.
I was scrambling for 1. How do you have 4?
Wait. Is 4 some sort of secret murder stabby number or something that I don't know about? Is there significance to the pagan death cults?
No, actually, I have a lot more than 4, but I'm trying not to prattle on too much. So I'm trying to stick to 4. Aragon, I just think it deserves a reboot. I think they could do so much goodness with that. Waterworld, I think it's time.
That would be a cool reboot.
I think it's time because all of us kids that grew up watching the OG Waterworld are taking our kids to Universal. They're seeing the show, but not quite understanding what they're seeing. And I think a reboot that's not so, as my kid calls it, cringe, would be good for the next generation.
Stabby, if you're gonna do the Waterworld, you got to add in the Postman in that era of movies.
Crossover.
The Page Master.
Ooh, excellent choice.
I think that one would be a fun one to get a reboot for all of our book lovers out there. And then my personal favorite, and I think it's time, and I watch it at least 4 or 5 times a year with all its crazy weird ass sequels, but Jaws. It's time to bring Bruce back.
I didn't actually catch it until I watched some of the analysis of it, but the captain on Jaws on the original was actually one of the survivors of the Indianapolis when it sunk at the end of World War II.
Yeah, Robert Shaw did a great scene in that.
Yeah, I actually watched the movie about the Indianapolis, and it's crazy because they actually they did the trial when they were trying to charge the captain for it, and all the survivors spoke out for him. Even the captain of the Japanese sub that sunk his ship came in no, there's nothing he could have done. We had him either way. It's a phenomenal story, and the fact that I was included in Jaws, chef's kiss. It makes the character pop so much more. All right, so we are at 49 minutes, and we haven't gotten past the nostalgia, so that does tell us we need more nostalgia episodes. But also, since then, Stabby, you are a resident coffee addict. You are the only one who I think who loves coffee more than me. So I'm going to ask you, I've been drinking iced coffee lately, even though it's getting colder. What have you been drinking?
I have been drinking the Coffee Brand Coffee Spiked Jack-o'-lantern. It is flippin' delicious, and I don't even need creamer in it.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
Everybody here is like, what? You didn't put cream? Yeah,
That's
I'm
not
telling
possible.
you, it's so good. We have the Coffee Brand Coffee Butterscotch Toffee, which is once again so good. I don't need creamer in it, but I am using Italian sweet cream creamer in it, and it gives it that little extra. And then the last one that I just received is the Coffee Brand Coffee Fall Collection Maple Cream. It tastes like pancakes in coffee form.
I am getting that when I get paid on the 1st. I'm just saying that's been in my I've been looking at that for a couple days.
Mm-hmm. I was on the fence, but it tastes like pancakes.
I've told you before that my favorite drink at Starbucks when I was a Black Apron barista, like I was a coffee master, was our maple latte. And it was basically like a liquid pancake that was like a heart attack in a cup, which is why it had so much sugar in it that the doctors' associations asked Starbucks to stop making it.
Here's the thing. You're like me. You like cream in your coffee. Well, you like a little bit of coffee in your cream, but I like cream in my coffee. But if you get this bag of maple cream, they put the 2 little holes in the back so you can smell it. As soon as I opened the box, the whole box smelled like pancakes. And the bag was completely sealed. I picked it up. I'm like, yeah, that's pancakes. That's freaking pancakes.
For the Philistines in the audience, IHOP now makes their own coffee that you can buy in the store, and they do it. Well, they do a maple syrup pancake as well, and I like it. My wife not so much, but I like it. And their double chocolate chip pancake version is also fun. And this is IHOP, just in the Walmart. I like my cheap coffee. What can I say?
No. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm going to check it out. I do remember when the joking IHOP tried to change their name and they got made fun of so badly that they changed it back.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them going in a good direction. And with that, we're going to shamelessly shill for the man, and we're going to play that commercial because, who doesn't need a commercial an hour in?
Ho, ho! Oh, hell. Is that sleigh bells ringing in your ears or a few rounds from an M60? You wanted the jolly fat man to bring Yuletide joy, but the season has gifted you with a heartbreaker and a life taker. Badass Santa. Grab your eggnog and camouflage candy canes. Strap on your bulletproof holiday stockings and prepare for thrills and kills. From blood-stained rebellion at the North Pole to a Black Ops raid on a distant planet, these 18 action-packed tales will show you Saint Nick as you have never seen him before. It's all you'll want for Christmas.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And now we're here to talk about Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
First, obviously, if you haven't seen it and you're listening, pause this episode right here. Go watch the movie.
Because we
Dude,
will
it's
spoil
been years.
everything.
I'm going to spoil everything for you.
We'll wait.
Yeah.
1999.
You've had 24 years to watch this damn movie. F is wrong with
Spoiler
you.
alert has been removed.
But with that out of the way, why do you guys love? We're going to start with why you love it, and then your memory of the first time watching it. That's where we're going to start these episodes. So, Nick wants to go first. He raised his hand like a good little boy.
Otherwise, I won't get to talk. Everyone will talk. I'm going to get. I call dibs. That's still a thing. I licked it. It's mine. I saw it in the theaters.
Really?
Tim Allen in it. Yeah, I saw it in theaters, 1999, in Fort Lewis, Washington, on the Base Theater. I was in desperate need for other sci-fi. Desperate need, because there wasn't a whole lot going on in 1999 that was good. It had Tim Allen in it. It had it just had so many great actors. Alan Rickman. It had Sigourney Weaver. It had the future monk. Who?
Sam Rockwell.
It had Sam Rockwell in it.
Sam Rockwell.
The very unknown who was the best D3PO in a movie ever. He was definitely committed.
Freaking Long.
And Justin Long, who was also an up-and-comer. So you got all these up-and-comers going on. And it was a spoof on Star Trek, which I loved. Because I was in desperate need for a Star Trek movie. We were years from getting a new Star Trek movie. So when it came out, I saw the trailer. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. They're spoofing Star Trek. Roddenberry's probably pissed. Rolling in his grave. But I think he would enjoy the spoof of it. Kind of like George Lucas liked Spaceballs, and then when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, yeah, it's a spoof, but it's its own thing. Like they reinvented the wheel and it made it work and made it more efficient. And I thought it was cool. And then the Omega 19, was that what it was called?
13.
Omega 13.
The Omega 13 device. I was like, oh my God, that's a spoof to this over here. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And when I watched it and you see how these characters interact, the actors with the aliens, with the and the fans. So it was like a complete. It was such a genius movie, and it's something that they could have ran multiple movies with this. The continued adventures, which would have been awesome. And I feel like we got cheated, because I love that movie so much. We watch it several times a year here. It's like, we're in the mood for sci-fi, but we don't want to watch like some legacy sci-fi stuff like Star Wars or Star Trek.
So for Star Trek spoofs, do you like it better than the Orville, or is it a tie for you? Because that's another modern reboot or mock-you version of Star Trek.
Orville's good, but it's not Galaxy Quest.
No.
Excellent answer.
It's not the same. It's not the same. I mean, they're coming at it from different attitudes. I mean, speaking of seeing it in the theaters, I actually walked in late when I saw it for the first time. So I came in just as the opening scenes are showing, and I'm standing in the aisle, and their ship gets hit by the blast from the other ship, and they all dive to one side and dive to the other side. And I stood there and I just laughed so hard. I didn't even sit down because it felt like they get that this is what we made fun of Star Trek for, but we did it because we loved it. And it was so clear that this was, they loved the original property. And the Orville is, and the Orville is fine for what it is, but it's not, they're not doing the same thing. They're doing their own kind of, what they're making fun of is something different than the property. They're making fun of other aspects of Star Trek. And then of course they go off and they're doing their own thing. So, but Galaxy Quest, it was so clear that they loved the show, even as they could say, well, it had some really dumb things about it, but we loved it anyway. And that really spoke to me because I grew up with, the original series, and I was a teenager before we ever even thought that there would be a new show, that there would be all these movies. And, back in the day when the pocket novels were really all you had for, the continuing adventures of the Enterprise. And they were fantastic. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved those books, but this Galaxy Quest just was so great for what I remembered being as a fan. That this was like, they weren't making fun of the fans. They were the fans. And that's what I was. So that's why I loved it.
It's definitely an homage that gives respect to the source material and adds another layer to it, which made it something completely unique.
Yeah.
So it kind of like brings you in as a fan of that type of show, and it just like spins a whole new narrative to it. So that's what I really loved about it, because it focused on being true to its source material, being true to its, homage, and then being true to the fans of that, because they incorporated characters that were fans of that, that show that's a spoof, that's a homage, that's this, that's that. Like Justin Long is like just amazing in that movie. Like you watch it, you're
really
like, this kid's going places. So it's one of those movies that deserved like 3 or 4 freaking sequels.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get everyone else a chance to answer. So James, first off, why do you love it and where did you first find it? So they often those answers go hand in hand. So I'm asking them together.
So actually, I grew to appreciate it more as I got older. But I first saw it home video. You know, I like Tim Allen's comedy. I like sci-fi. I was like, all right, cool. As I got older, though, I really, Nick has the right word. It's genius. It is so clever in the way it approaches like fandom and that kind of that movie. Plus, it has no right to be as good as it is and also have as amazing a cast as it does. Like Nick was just, swooning all over everybody. But seriously,
I'll swoon again. I'll swoon again, James. I'll swoon again.
I know you will. You can get a room.
I'm going to get 2 rooms adjoining so people can watch.
So basically, there were no small roles. Like you had, Sam Rockwell as the red shirt essentially, and he ended up stealing several scenes. The Enrico Colantini as the leader of the alien, he played him with such a straight face that
the laugh.
It
cracks me up every time.
Big eyes. Everything
so
about it was brilliant. Every acting choice made by those actors was brilliant. All the story choices were brilliant. Even the one thing I always thought was super clever, the aliens recreated the ship from the historical documents so that they could get away with cheap plywood looking sets in the actual spaceship, so that all the effects could be well done for what they were. If that makes sense. It was it was so self-aware. It had so much heart that it just was like I said, it had no right to be as good as it was, and
it had no business going that hard. It had no business going that hard.
Once again, they marketed it entirely wrong. They marketed it as making fun of Trek, but by the end, it just shows the heart. It shows the heart of the fans.
It's a heartfelt, genius homage to Star Trek and similar series like that, but it's mostly Star Trek.
So
it had no business going that hard.
Boncher, when was the first time? When was the first time you discovered Galaxy Quest, and why do you love it?
I will be honest, I don't remember when I first saw it. I just know it was probably on home video. And I just remember being so impressed by it, but I don't remember any details about it since then, because it was the first time I think we really got a film that was for the fans, because the people in charge of the property basically stuck their fingers up in the air at us for not giving us what could have been and was originally written as one of the best Star Trek films ever, and they turned it into a parody to make fun of the executives and show love to the fans and say, yes, we are not making fun of you, we're making fun of at most the executives that passed on this wonderful opportunity. And that was one of the biggest things about this. The only other film that has come close, in my opinion, to that level of heart is one I've talked about before, and that is Ghostbusters Afterlife. That movie, I think that movie needed to have Galaxy Quest to kind of exist and understand this is how you treat fans well. And they did it by not mocking the fans directly, but making fun of a lot of the things around it, and also not laughing at, but laughing with. And that is what really was impressive about it. It's like, okay, we're here to laugh about something we love. Because, it's not perfect, but it's what we love, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So,
okay. Jana, where did you first find it, and why do you love it so?
So, I have no idea where I first found it. I've seen it so many times that I have no identifiable memory that says this was the first one. It exists in the multiverse somewhere. But part of what I really love, having seen it lots of times, is that it kind of reminds me of the Looney Tunes in that it's written on lots of different levels, and you can enjoy it in different ways at different times, depending on where you are in your life. because seeing it as a college student was a very, very different thing, because I was young in my fandom, and you know, there was a part of you that really, really wanted it to be true. And you know, so you identified in certain ways. And now where I am, I watch it again and I'm like, oh yeah, Alan Rickman, you totally got it right. He's such an orc. You know, you start to identify in different ways every time you watch it, depending on where you are in your life. So I like that multi-layered thing. I also like how much they considered who the actors were and how that affected their characters. Because I can't say it.
Sigourney Weaver.
Thank you. For whatever reason, I've lost her first name. She was interviewed and she said, yeah, I wanted to do this because it would be such a kick to not be the kick-ass female, but to still play that role and to be able to do a little bit of everything. And she says it was so much fun to scream and pound on people and go, ah! And I'm like, for all that we make fun of the females that do that, I can see as an actress why it would have been such a kick for her to just play that role and to go, why is this in here? This is stupid. Why are we doing this? And she was obviously they were all obviously having so much fun. And when Alan Rickman's sitting there going, you know, I did Henry VIII. There were 4 curtain calls.
There we go.
That's him. He was that style of actor. So they pulled that through with each of the character choices. They were also layering
very
in
Patrick Stewart of it.
Yeah, well, who the actors were, and who and what it was that they liked or didn't like. Because Tim the Toolman Taylor is right there in our leading man. So
more power.
Yeah, exactly.
So never give up, never surrender.
Grunt at all times.
So I remember exactly where I was because I actually hadn't heard of it and didn't see it until I got back from overseas, and I was in the Walter Reed, and they were playing that in the day room, whatever they call it, the common area in the hospital ward. And I was watching that and I got really into it, and they came to take me to one of my appointments. I'm like, nope, you got to reschedule. This is on the screen. And I made them wait and rebook my appointment at the VA. And I played the, you know, I might be slightly, you know, deranged veteran card a little bit too hard because I wanted to see the movie. And I do like at its core, Galaxy Quest is a movie about second chances, and I'm a sucker for a second chance. And it's like rising above, and you see that most perfectly with the guy who shows up to all the cons, and his claim to fame is he was like red shirt number 12 or whatever it was. Like, and then when
Herman number 6.
Yeah.
Herman number 6.
When it happens in real life, it's like, wait a minute, I know where this ends. I die here. No, never mind. Like, that was just so
those
perfect.
are some of the best character self-referential moments. I mean, that was a great part. The self-referential moments from the characters about what happened to them in the show. That was even better.
Sam Rockwell nailed that. He's like, oh no, I'm gonna die here. You know,
the other one that you see where they clearly didn't take it too seriously is when they get in the ship for the first time, and the ship driver's actually got to drive a real spaceship now, and he accidentally like slams it into the spaceport, and he pulled an Urkel,
which was funny because they brought that same thing into the Star Trek movie reboot with Sulu.
Yeah.
So like I watched that, and then like my brain went to Galaxy Quest. I'm like, oh my god, they spoofed the spoof. That is amazing.
But they pulled the straight Urkel from like the 1980s sitcoms. He was like, did I do that? Perfectly. Now, whether they did that intentionally, I don't know, but there's a lot of incestuous relationships in movies in Hollywood, in that they're in all the things. So they, maybe even some of those writers were in some of the earlier sitcom rooms. So, but I remember watching it. I'm like, that's freaking Urkel's line. So, all right, Stabby, you get to go last. Tell us why, when you first watched it and why you love it.
So I was actually actively working on a theater project. I was costume and makeup, and I was like, I just swung by Joann's. I picked up a whole bunch of fabric. I knew what I had to make for costumes, and I was like, I am going to be up until 3:00 in the morning making these costumes. So I was like, let me stop by Blockbuster and grab a movie. Stop by, and I was like, I can't do anything spooky or scary tonight because then I won't pay attention. Let me find some random comedy movie I've never seen. So I grabbed Galaxy Quest. I went home, threw it in, sitting at my desk. I'm sewing away, and all of a sudden I heard Alan Rickman, and I was like, Next thing I know, it's 3:00 in the morning. None of the costumes are done, but I'm watching Alec Rickman run around with holes in his head
and his hair coming out.
sticking out. And I'm like, this costume person is a genius. I'm gonna do that someday. I'm like, I look over at my desk and I'm like, not tonight. Fabric everywhere and nothing is made. I remember calling my producer the next morning. I'm like, hey, I crashed out. I need to stay home today. I need to really knock out these costumes. I'll make sure they're there by tonight. It's like, okay, no problem. Cannot put that movie back on. But I did fall in love with that movie. I love the costumes. I love the way that, like, as Sigourney's tore throughout the whole thing, you'd see more and more of her bra, Alan Rickman's hair sticking out. Like, everybody's costume was just ripping in slightly different ways that, like, are so common to different movie genres. And Sigourney being from Aliens, you know, it was always her coming down to her in her bra, and it was funny that that's how hers would tear, and everybody's would tear in different ways. I was having a good time with it.
I like the opening with Tim Allen's character, the captain, and he's like passed out drunk because he becomes a functioning, well, maybe not so functioning alcoholic. And like anybody that's been in the military understands that moment where you wake up and like, wait, was that real or did I imagine it? And that's kind of the vibe he had when he first woke up, and he's got the people standing there like, hey, you know, we've got this gig for you. But we're missing the elephant in the room. The fact that they solved the whole problem by actually tapping into the nerds that they were mocking in the green room, who knew all the schematics. Like where is this piece again? Like I thought that was classic.
Yeah.
Well, first you have to go through the choppers. Who designed this?
Whoever wrote this episode should die.
That was it. That was it. That was.
And the whole time you just have Justin Long sitting there on the computer, like,
all right. And he was so good in that.
And the
role.
aliens in that movie look like that metal band Gwar, like their costumes.
With a little bit of shine to it.
And still around and touring.
Are they really? I thought for sure.
By the way, speaking of the aliens, not necessarily those, but Mathazar, that actor, when I saw him, I sat there looking at him the first time going, why does he look so familiar? And then I realized it's the photographer from
Just Shoot Me.
And this guy is far better than he's punching so far above his weight. The light is dropping at range. That was amazing. And he's the one that apparently they gave him free range to design all the laugh, the way they talk, and all.
Oh, really?
He was in charge of it all because they wanted to have him be comfortable with it. And so he basically went back to all sorts of different theater class stuff, theater exercises. So that's why he talked like this all the time. He was trying to get the voice up here in the skull. And then it was always walking same side, arm, leg, and then all those things.
Speaking of the decisions made on some of those alien characters, what did you guys think of that romance between crewman? It wasn't crewman. It was the monk.
No, Chief Engineer Kwan.
Yeah. Tech Sergeant Kwan. Tech Sergeant Kwan and Laliari. Yes.
I love
that was funny. Where they're kissing for the first time and she kind of turns back into herself, and Sam Rockwell commenting on it. So we don't see most of it. You know, it's just Sam Rockwell, and he's selling it. And
the tentacles.
Even better is all of us that have been around military types have seen the guy who I still would. And then they just go for it. Like that scene encapsulated that moment so perfectly. I mean, frat boys probably have the same thing going on. I don't think it's exclusive to the military. Maybe it's just a guy thing. I don't know. But that scene perfectly sold that. Like kind of gross, but you know what? We're just gonna go with it.
We also have to give full props to Missy Pyle in Going to Town. And remember this, Missy Pyle. What other alien creature is she known for playing? But the Martian spy in Mars Attacks, the one with the big hair and bubble gum.
Oh, really?
And she had that whole floating walk. So she's been in two of them.
Mm-hmm.
The Martian
But
definitely
it's a fun
deserves a
little
review on
romance.
this.
It's this very cute B plot, their little romance, and that the captain is with Gwen and they're doing their thing, but that we have this little thing, and that she becomes his confidence in the moments that he needs it. That there was a really strong romance in that, because you saw the meet cute happen where they see each other the first time, and the things that he's doing and the stuff that she admires, and then he's got that big moment and he can't do it and he can't do it, and then she walks into the room and all she does is smile at him. It's this beautiful romance that is never explicit, but she smiles and he zips up his suit and does the thing to impress the girl.
Goes on in.
And then at the end, Mathazar is so, they're holding hands and it's going to be so cute and they're going to ride off. And it was just this really, really beautiful B plot that was allowed to just exist there. And yet it added so much to everything else that was going on.
And I love that she made it onto the show at the end, when they got the final credits for the reboot show, and she's sitting there as Jane Doe. But I thought that was great that they included her.
When they got the Next Generation treatment.
Yeah.
Can we also just mention how Tony Shalhoub just knocked it out of the park with the way that guy, I kept looking at him going, you were a stoner in the 60s, weren't you? He just sort of had that ultra mellow, nothing is phasing, unflappable.
Oh, dude. Like his give a damn was broken. All the chaos is happening. And it's just like, okay, all right.
My guy, I'll get my guys down there with a can of WD-40 to fix that sticky door. And, he just he takes it in stride, the whole thing. Just great.
He had all the chill in the world.
Okay, but I've got to talk about Alan Rickman, because Alan Rickman was absolutely one of my favorite actors in the world, and anything he was in, I was there for. And so seeing him in this was like, I mean, that he was willing to do, that all of them were willing to do this, because and I've said this on other shows, talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, talking about Sean Connery being willing as an action hero to make himself look like an idiot. And I have great respect for these famous actors who are willing to do something outside what people expect of them and just go with it. They're, because they could be scared that it's going to affect their fans, that they're going to do something and the fans are going to be like, that's not what I expect of you, and be done with it. So it's a real risk that they take when they do that. And so I have huge respect for that, and especially for Alan Rickman, who could have done anything. Although the first thing I saw him in was Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, and he was chewing the scenery there. So, I knew he had it in him, but it was just, he was fantastic. They were all fantastic. I have an extra special love for Alan Rickman.
He will always be on Scuba for me.
I love the way he just did the, I don't want to be here by Grabthar's Hammer at the signing in the beginning. Like, it was very clear he was just done with all the fans, but he also needed the money that he got as a washed up actor from the fan conventions. And the reason it's funny is because I know people who go to those conventions and they met those actors that are just, they don't want to be there. They think they're above all of it, but they need the money.
Yeah, it's the celebrity petting zoo effect. They have basically, I've seen more than my fair share of those and gone, man, I love the work that you did, and I hate to see you at this point, but at the same time, I get it. I absolutely get it. I don't have to live there with you, but I get it. So I always, in the few chances I've had to run into people at cons of that, I've tried to be nice. Only one of them was a complete freaky ass, and I'm not going to mention who it was, but it was just, I came to compliment him and he just went weird. So, but otherwise, I totally get it. And you're right. Alan Rickman nailed that like nobody's business. And you think about the screen royalty that was there with Sigourney Weaver and everything, even it's part of what made that thing so special. And you talk about how he took a risk with this. In a lot of ways, I just realized that Galaxy Quest is also closely related to Airplane, in that you had a lot of big names playing against type, and Leslie Nielsen broke completely out of it. he broke completely out and realized, oh my God, I have a penchant for comedy. I don't have to be the straight guy like this anymore. The super serious guy. I can even do it as funny. And he created himself a whole second career out of that. Otherwise, he was drying up. So, but yeah. So
I purposely put on movies with different Harry Potter characters and just wait for my son to realize who it is.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Just randomly, I will pick and choose a random movie and I'll put it on and I'll wait. And I'll wait because he has the worst memory, voice, face, everything, and I wait. So like when he's like, Snape is just Snape, I was like,
oh no.
I have our movie tonight. So I put on Galaxy Quest and I just waited. And waited. It was almost 3/4 of the movie gone before he finally goes, why does that guy sound like Snape? I'm just in there like, it took you almost the whole movie to figure it out. And that's how I pick on him. And I think the Voldemort ones are my favorite because he's like, that's not anybody I know. And I'm like, really? What if we took his nose away? It's too much fun in our house, but that's the first one that I showed him where Alan Rickman, he sounded like Snape, but he did not look like Snape. And he just sat there all movie like, I know that guy. And I was like, yep, there it is, bud. There it is.
So what did you guys think of the way they did the ending where they crash into the open or like the closing ceremonies of the con and everybody that's like doesn't know they could die any moment because there's real fight going on in front of them and they just thought it was part of the show? I thought that was such like classic layered plot and acting. Like whoever came up with that concept for the end, genius. And I don't use that word lightly. That was layered so much of the plot arcs and all of that was going on throughout the whole movie, and then to call it all back to the fans at the end. Oh, I wish I could write that.
I actually just sent you the picture of that one in our admin chat. So if you wanted to put it up on the screen, because they have that big old fight and everything, and then they're all just like, okay, everybody take a bow.
I'll tell you, I think my personal canon for this is that everybody thought that was the promo for the new show, and that's why everyone who's on the stage is in the credits, and that's why they got their second show, was because they did this fantastic stunt, and somebody thought, oh well, okay, it must be for a new show you're promoting. So that's how I personally interpret it. That's probably not what they meant, but I like imagining that.
Got him the next show though. So.
That's right, exactly. So that's why I think that would be very cool if that was the case.
Happy accidents, as Bob
Ross would say.
Yeah.
Oh, we love that.
Well, and this whole thing is the growth arc of the characters, and Cinema Therapy does a really, really good rundown on this particular show. And so they talk about how Jason Nesbitt grows and how he has to learn about humility and accountability in order to become a good leader. And that in that last moment, he becomes a good leader because he's now figured out what's going on. And what he does is selfless because he's protecting his crew and he's protecting the fans.
Right.
He finally become the leader that he always pretended to be before it came in. And so that's a great, shout out to the Cinema Therapy guys, because they're amazing anyway, but they did a really good job with this and with breaking down how the different characters are broken down in the beginning, and then they learn to embrace who they were playing in the show and how that reflects on them as a person. And you can see it in all the different characters as they go through the different layers. All right, Pittman, you haven't said anything in a while, dude.
I was about to say, Pittman.
Y'all keep jumping on everything I want to say. I pretty much agree with pretty much all of what you said. So one thing I thought was very funny when the commander convinces them to come on ship. Boncher was talking about Tony Shalhoub playing the perfect stoner. Their reactions when they first actually get on the ship and realize it's real, and one, the Tim Allen commander, he has that resurgence of joy that, because he's playing it up to the fans. He's really hamming it up. He's really good with the kids and the fans and conveying that it's real to the people who are enjoying the fandom until that unfortunate moment where he overhears the bubble popping conversation in the bathroom where they're just slamming him. But that energy is rejuvenated when he is actually like, oh, this is actually real now. Okay, let me take all that acting that I did and apply that. Tony Shalhoub's character is like, yeah, okay, whatever. After all the rest of them are like cringing and like, what the heck is falling
Sam
over?
Rockwell's absolute freak out.
Yes.
Yeah.
That scream
And
was
also
perfect.
that was a great scream.
I like Rickman's B plot with his surrogate protege character.
His protege, the one who's been studying with his stuff. Yeah.
And that, that spoiler alert on-screen death again had no reason to go as hard as it did with that story, but it was absolutely perfect. So, and it even kind of, shows him the meaning behind what he was doing, what that kind of work can mean to somebody else. And he was able to give him that final goodbye, that send-off, that touching moment of embodying that ideal again. But here's one thing I kind of want to ask everybody. I think it would be hilarious. So, how I was talking about earlier, they took everything from the historical documents and modeled all of the controls and everything after what they had done for however many episodes they had played on. How well could you operate something you created for your own fiction?
That's a really good question.
Well, there's a reader his career as a day job is he designs ships for the Navy. And he actually has talked about in some interviews I've seen, and I'll see if I can find them again because they're not recent, where he actually read a couple sci-fi series. And as he's sketching out what they're talking about, there are spaceships that have whole sections open to space and some hallways or passageways that loop back to each other but go nowhere else. And so the fact that they even wrote something that's quasi-functioning would already be a start.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also the super advanced alien tech that allowed them to fill in those gaps from all the little bits and pieces that they saw.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that it's even possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, since so many of them would have been recorded on sound stages, so you don't get to see necessarily how all the halls tie together. I mean, they wave their hands in Star Trek all the time and say, Jeffrey's tubes, that's what connects everything, and the elevator, and these big, long hallways. And everything else is, they finally put out a lot of the schematics and that kind of thing. But for years, there was a whole lot of fill in the blank as to really where is engineering and how long would it take for you to go from engineering to the bridge and back. And so, for them to just watch those and be able to piece together from here's what the outside looks like and here's the various sound stages. I mean, they really were very advanced little aliens, little termites.
The termite.
Yeah, that's if you remember the running joke that the Star Trek Enterprise didn't have a bathroom because that was problematic. So like the idea that they could do that for this show with the aliens, I agree. I was just thinking that when I watched it myself.
Well, they created an Omega-13 that worked. I mean, that's like magic
knowing nothing else about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
and even technically, that was wasn't that at the beginning like a lost episode?
Yeah.
That they were showing
it hadn't. They hadn't shown that two-parter for several years.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like the fact that they got that and were able to extrapolate. We're not going to call it a plot hole, but we're going to call it, cephalopod brilliance because they were octopi.
Yeah, it counts. Yeah.
So we went long on the intro for nostalgia, so balancing it out, we are at the point where we can start wrapping it up. But before we do that, where would you guys like to see if we got the sequel to Galaxy's Quest, right? Or they even turned it into an ongoing series a la Stargate, Battlestar, whatever. Where would you like to see them go in the future if they carry the plot line forward?
Huh.
I would like to see them at some point incorporate the kids that were like saving their butts as kind of like cooler versions of Wesley Crusher, less annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I could see them being like interns or midshipmen or whatever.
Yeah.
That could be fun to see. And then selling it out to the mothers. Like, you're going to do what with my kids?
What would be really cool is to have it kind of spin off the whole. It's portrayed as a TV show, as a historical documentary, but at the same time, it's actually really happening.
Mm-hmm.
Since you have the Missy Pyle alien as part of the crew on the show, you could actually have them go into space and encounter these new aliens with the,
You're stealing the joke about Kubrick. He was such good at fake. He was such a perfectionist that to fake the moon landing, he went to the moon.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're leaning into that.
Right. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Yeah. Okay. Playing off James, this is historical documents. Well, what else is in the historical documents that might?
Besides Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, besides Gilligan's Island, those poor people.
Those poor people.
But what else have they done in these historical documents that somebody else might latch onto, or that the Thermians need them to come back for? I mean, we probably don't want to replay the Thermian thing because that's been done. But
well, I mean, you've already got Rainn Wilson, so The Office.
Right, The Office.
So,
I know. I that cracked me up. That I saw that and I didn't recognize him the first time.
Like I said, the whole cast is people we know. They literally got people who are like, hey, who likes Star Trek? Who wants to be on a nostalgia movie? Ooh, me, pick me. I don't care what I'm doing. I'm doing it.
And they got established actors too. Like,
exactly.
One way they could do it is they've got to explain, because, even in 1999, technology was such that someone's going to notice this giant thing shooting through the sky that either is a rocket, a comet, a spaceship, whatever. Somebody saw something. So how do you explain it? In Stargate SG-1, they answer that by they had a fake series. So anybody that said what they really saw, like, oh, they're just stupid fans and they're like crazy, right? So they released the fake series to show what was really going on, but not to like plausible deniability. I could see that kind of plot arc, and Stargate isn't the only one that's done that angle, but something along those lines to like cover it up if you want to keep it hidden, because otherwise you've got to explain aliens are real and there's some dangerous things out there.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, what about if the government sees that, traces it to them, concludes that they know more than they do, just the way the Thermians did, and now they've got to figure out how to deliver this technology that's only existed on the show that doesn't really happen, because the government is putting pressure on them. So again, back to the historical documents. So
and that could be a funny
historical documents.
That could be a funny tie into like the Area 51 mythology that exists.
Right.
Like we think they've already got alien stuff there.
Sure, yeah.
That could be a funny tie-in, I think, to that idea. What about you, Boncher? I've used that one before. Hold on. Boncher. There we go. That's different.
That's good.
That's different enough. That's yeah. I have absolutely no input on what a sequel could be for Galaxy Quest, honestly. I nothing. I got nothing.
So if you were going to write a sequel, what would you do if you were writing it?
I'd find a ghostwriter. I'm not kidding. I literally have no idea where to go. I couldn't write Star Trek either. So, but I got no direction to go with it.
Well,
sorry,
it's so good the way it is. It's
no touching.
I have the benefit of my first 5 novels were written in other people's universes, so it's kind of a skill you gotta. The trick, if you want to do it, is you find the dark corners they haven't illuminated yet, and you go there. Because if you use the mainline characters and you don't get it just right by whatever metric the fan uses, you'll hear about it, and no matter what you do, someone's going to be offended. So new characters, new setting, same scene, tie in that way. So what you could do is you could have another group of aliens that don't like the I'm going to butcher
Thermians.
that.
I mean,
Thermians. Yeah. And they come and get the different fandom. I don't know, insert random TV series. And you could have like Clash of the Fandoms.
All I'm going to say in regards to this with the historical documents is I actually, for a diamond hard science fiction universe, a shared universe that I was working in once, I decided to deal with this by creating an item for it called the Illalu Barrier. And I got looked at very strangely. I said it's very simple. It's a myth in the universe that, as of course the signals from Earth go out, they get weaker and weaker. But you can actually use it as a time capsule, and the very leading edge of it is something that I said just for the hell of it. It was called the Illalu Barrier, which basically you would hear a very iconic theme song whenever you hit it, and you know you were at the edge of human space from when it developed television. Da, 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 da. I said that's the extent of where you got common knowledge of what of American pop culture and transmitted knowledge. It would be that theme song would show up. Cool. You would detect it because for a time it was one of the most popular shows in the world.
Yes.
So that's as close as I could get for a device that any other person or other alien race could come to the historical documents. The question is, what would they copy?
What about you, Jana? Where would you take it?
I would jump to the nerdy kids and their own crew. I would age it up and let them go and have their adventures, because the pro and con and one of the difference between serial form like we see with television and a movie is they really did tie things together really well. Those arcs are really quite complete, and so you'd have to think about, where do they go from where they are now. And I kind of like where they are. And so for me, the interesting thing would be to say, okay, these kids just found out that all of this really is real. What does that make them as they become adults? They're very much they're there to step into those shoes and to become a new crew that would look at this adventure in an entirely different way. And I'd be interested in what their story is and how the older crew then connects into that. You
could have Tim Allen's character come back as like the Admiral. Kind of the play it forward.
You could do that whole connection with, these guys went off and they've been exploring, and now this new crew is coming up, and so how does that all connect together?
You could do the remember berries. Don't you remember this scene? And you could tie it in. Push it forward. Okay, so as we wrap this up, because I promised I would try to keep it to under an hour and a half in the future, and I have been doing horribly at that, dear listener, and I'm not even sorry.
Lied.
But Melissa, so first off, they're going to be listening to this right after they're coming out of their food coma and Thanksgiving. So your future you, what will you be writing? And then how can they find you?
Future me will probably still be working on the final book in the War Master series. You notice I didn't call it War Hamster. Thank you, JR. And my series about a lady paladin and her werewolf companion has the 5th book coming out very soon after this releases. It's called Bright Moon Deception. And
is that on audio?
It's not. The first 2 books were way too short to be productive, but I am looking for a narrator now to see about turning that into audio.
Is this an action story or a Snoopy Jena Rey story?
This is to take a few minutes. This is a series set in an alternate Renaissance Italy about a paladin of the dark goddess who goes out and fights monsters and discovers that things are not always as they seem when she encounters a werewolf who is not evil. And then the series is episodic. It's them having investigations. She works as a sort of front man for the leader of their religion, and so she'll go out and she'll investigate things and have adventures, and so it is solidly fantasy. It is not urban fantasy, despite the werewolf. I wrote it for my daughter who loves werewolves. She would love to have a werewolf boyfriend, and
werewolves are awesome, way cooler than dragons. There, I said it.
Very
There's
cool.
a dragon in it too.
There-
In a
well,
totally
they're
different
not-
way, but there is a dragon in
That's
it.
different. There's one dragon. Anyway, so and where can they find me? Was that the other question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can find me on. I can be contacted through my website, which is melissamcshanewrites.com. I'm on Facebook, and I have a Facebook readers group. I'm also on X. And if you contact me, you can ask about my Discord server, which is just getting started, and we have a lot of fun.
I need to get with you about reviewing the werewolf thing because I'm all about
Yeah.
the werewolves.
Well, we should talk about a show, an interview. I'd love to do that.
Absolutely. And Nick likes the
Great.
werewolves. I think that's because he's like the missing link. He's the furball. So I think that's why he likes the werewolves.
No, I blame Dog Soldiers.
Oh.
That is an excellent movie. We have reviewed it recently
with
It
Kevin
deserves a
McKidd.
sequel.
Oh my god, love that movie so much.
So I was disappointed to find out the sequel idea was a hoax. They weren't doing it. Moment of silence.
It is and it isn't. It's in like
Development hell, which is basically a lie.
Yeah, God, if I had the
Oh,
bold
Greta
man, I would make
Thunberg,
that
they
movie.
stole our childhood.
I'm waiting for fan-made films because those have been like some of the best ones that have been done of like popular franchises.
You know, there's this Axmar Studios that did a bunch of fan-made stuff for Star Trek before they got the cease and desist and the legal.
They even got They got Chekhov in one of their episodes, one of their shows.
They need to do a Galaxy's Quest because they're good, and they need to go and do for properties that like their fans because Star Trek clearly didn't. So there you go.
Galaxy Quest, other than the six of us, you know.
Right. All right. So, James, first off, what are you writing at the moment? Well, future you, because again, that's after the food coma on Thanksgiving. And then where can they find you? And as usual, all the links will be in the show notes.
So, future me should be done with Off Chance Volume 3 by now, and hopefully in the pre-order stage and prepping for that launch. So, hopefully, I will be moving on to either Pandora Squad 2 or a as yet unannounced project, or my romantic serial killer thriller thingamajig that a lot of people have been asking me to finish, or I don't know. I have a lot of ideas going, but main thing, hopefully Off Chance Felix Volume 3 will be done and getting ready to be published.
Where can they find you?
And they can find me on halfacrepond.com or J.E. Pittman Writes on the Facebook or j.e.pittman on the Instas and all the other things I think I have at least at parts, even if I don't use the social.
Okay. Jana, what will future you be writing? And then how can they find you? As usual, links are in the show notes.
Let's see. This is coming out Pie Week. Because pie week is very important to me. I make about 25 pies around Thanksgiving, so I lose writing time in that week. But future me will probably be hopefully in the end game of Fallen Leaves, which is the urban fantasy that I'm trying to get out, and then hopefully starting the next one. So that's fingers crossed. That's where I want to be. So hopefully, we'll check in later and find out if I'm actually there by then. I have other things boiling, but I'm focusing. Melissa tells me I have to focus. I have a little Shiva statue here that says no, that I can't
Shiva says no.
other things. Shiva says no, so I'm focusing on Fallen Leaves.
Okay. And where can they find you?
OpalKingdomPress.com, or they can find me under Jena Rey on Facebook and on Amazon and on all the things.
Okay. And Boncher. No, that's not really good. You could say your own name.
That's about the best.
Yeah, but it just didn't have that pizzazz in it. I need to do better.
We'll just go with the zazz then. Because I'm so zazzy. If anybody gets the reference. Nope, no takers. Anyway, what I'll be doing, hopefully, will be finishing up the editing on my anthology submission for Pogue 1. Because that's due right after Thanksgiving, so I hope to be doing finishing touches on that. I will also hopefully then be getting done the next submission I have. I got a bunch of short stories for some anthologies, plus a couple that I need to write, so I can finally put out the Dream Nebula Omnibus, the Origin Omnibus, that I plan to put out, and that's going to come out with some extra short stories that'll fill in gaps of those 3 novels. So that's sort of where I'm hoping to end up towards the end of the year. Whether I get there or not, crossing fingers.
All right, Nick. So you briefly showed us some art, but what are you drawing at the moment now that you're the center of stage?
Oh, my Lord. Center stage. All right. So I'm doing a speedster comic. It's finally going to happen in 2024. His name's Quickwire, and it's going to be awesome. And I think we've sidestepped a couple of speedster tropes.
There we go.
Can you zoom in?
Yeah, hold on. Give me a second. Can I? Yeah, I actually can. Stand by. How do I zoom in here?
I hate how they do the share screen and it doesn't instantly fill the screen. You got to like zoom it in. It's annoying. But and then while Nick is doing this, I'll say one of the things he's also doing, because we're going to be outlining it soon. We will have announced already the next volume of the Santa is Badass. We did Sleigh Bells Ring. We're going to do another one, different title, same concept. And Nick and I are doing a continuation of our story where the feral elves start like often drug dealers and stuff.
Cool. Right, so here's the zoom in version. So it's going to tie into the bigger world that is Apogee Comics and how he gets his powers. You're going to have to read it to find out. We set the tone in Dallas, Texas this time, as opposed to the West Coast, where a lot of the characters are. He's fun. We get to explore the adolescence crossing over into adulthood with a 20-year-old college student that suddenly gets superpowers. So it's super fun. The script is amazing, done by Matthew Hasso. It's one of those books where like I created the character and I gave another person access to my sandbox and he just ran with it. So it's a lot of fun, and he brought in some other things that I never thought of. So like I'm super excited about this. We're about 5 pages deep. It's really good, and there's some really funny moments in there. I can't wait to show it to you.
Okay. So for me, let's see. It's already done on my end. Jana as Jena Rey, or one of her multiple personalities. Because we've talked about the fantasy stuff we're going to write together in the near future, we started a test run our process. So I wrote a short story for a dragon anthology, Deadly Fires, which we'll be releasing in January. The contracts are already going out as we speak. The stories are all done. They're in edit. So our work on that is done. That'll be coming out soon. We've got contracts with the Ward Estate. The friend of the family is looking at it to make sure the contract is good enough for what they want, because we're trying to make sure we protect everybody. And we're really continuing that series because we could do our own just as easily, because we want to help the family too. Like, it's a win-win for us, which is James's idea that started with King Arthur meets Greyhawk, but it's not Greyhawk because that's protected by copyright. Jana and I are going to put our own spin on it, so that's in the future. I finished some ghostwriting projects I had to do because I had bills to pay, and so my goal is, if you're listening to this after the turkey coma, I will have made November writing month, because Nana was dead to all of us for some horrific things they did. But November writing month is still a thing, so I'm going to try to make that my biatch and try to finish book 2 in the Curse Brigade trilogy. And if I can do that, then I will be wrapping up the year writing the 3rd in the trilogy, so we can hit January with Jana and I doing our projects, because we have some pretty cool gamelit stuff. One that's our world, and one finishing the Ward Estate one that sounds really cool. And our short story in the Dragon Anthology is that a concept, which is, a lot of fun. And I can't let Nick read it because he's going to have some flashbacks to his bad jump, because part of how they get there is this paratrooper unit. There's some parachute malfunctions.
It's my fault. I didn't keep my feet and knees together. It just happened.
Well, this in ours, the chutes entangle, and I've seen that happen. It's not good.
That also happened during that jump, but I don't want to wax it and
right. So Nick he can't read it, but everyone else,
I can read it. Then I'll probably laugh too. Like, that's not how your leg breaks on that shit.
Well, I mean, the whole point was fighting a dragon, so we skipped through some of the boring stuff just to get to the dragon, because dragons are cool and killing them is cooler. And
never skip the shit leading to the dragon, dude. Like,
no, you gotta take it out. It wants to eat you, so you shoot it with the AT4, because what else would you do? Jeez.
Hit it with a Gustav?
I mean, their guards, they didn't have Gustavs. They don't like them that much.
Yeah, but they have AT4s. Like, it doesn't make sense.
AT4s are like old school. Like, they go back to the 90s, brother.
The Gustavs go way back too. Like, they're
interchangeable. Not to line units. I know, because I was a nobody, no special schools fool that didn't get any of the cool tech, and we did not get Gustavs.
Lo siento that the special operations armament didn't get down to the junior branches. My bad. I wasn't in charge.
I was
an E3, man. What do you want from me?
All right. And so before we let you go, dear listener, this is the important part where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part on whatever platform you purchase fine books at. And it really does help. And that includes if you buy a movie from Amazon. If you want other people to say, hey, this is pretty cool, let me buy it too. Leave the review there. And maybe you'll sell enough copies because your review is so kick-ass that they give us that sequel we've all been demanding for 3 decades. 3 months. It's not been that long. We're not that old. And with that, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, Rumbles, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters, the Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. We have for professional purposes only, please. We have Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and email linked in the Linktree. Send all the shenanigans her way, all the hate mail, all the story ideas, all the episode ideas. Send it to Stabby.
She's cry. I'm just saying.
She might make you cry. She might stab you, but you'll like it, so it's all good. We link to our Spotify address.
Stab me mostly.
You had it coming. We link to our Spotify address, bunch of gobbledygook. Don't blame us, blame them. But when you go there, you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. These episodes aren't free to produce, and every penny counts, and we appreciate your patronage. Seriously, it means more than you can know. And we have a couple dedicated fans every year for a couple $100 our way to cover most of the overhead. So we do appreciate every one of you, but every penny counts. You could support the show more directly by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. And I promise if you put in the notes that it's for the podcast, I will help keep Nick out of the poorhouse because Stabby is spending way too much money on coffee brand coffee. This is what happens when drug dealers use their own supply. I'm just saying. It gets out of hand.
True.
I can tell every time she buys because I'm the administrator for the group account. And so every time someone purchases using our code, I get the alert. And I'm like, ooh, does Nick know?
I do get a couple of cups. So
yeah, okay.
To be fair, I do get a couple of cups. I get to share the supply. To which
and let's just say you don't want Stabby uncaffeinated. So you really are doing the world a favor when you support the show. Caffeine-free Stabby is not a nice Stabby.
Give her anti-murder juice.
Give her anti-murder juice. And if you want to buy some of that coffee brand coffee, the link is in the show notes. Click the link. Podcast Grunts gets you 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win. It's an American company, roasted in America, not a drop shipping operation. Buying local is good. Obviously, it sells in the U.S. If you were outside of the U.S., shop local. I don't care what it is. And if you have a good one that's local, you should hit us up and tell us about it. And we'll pimp them out too.
Arizona.
I know.
United States.
But we got listeners overseas, and if they've got favorite roasting plants local, we'll shout them out too, because why not?
They ship internationally now.
Oh, they do? Well, there you go. Buy from us then, okay? And with that, we appreciate your coming on and listening to us blabber. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley. This was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And if you think bickering with Nick and I today was bad, I'm just telling you on the off show, it gets a little bit more intense because we don't moderate our language. So, I mean, maybe we should start.
We should probably film that.
We should. All right. And with that, seriously, everyone, thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun. We could probably mine more episodes out of this topic. I've got to go re-listen to this episode because I didn't write down all the great future topic ideas that I didn't write down.
My Lord.
There were a lot of bangers in this one, too, that I'm like, yeah, we should really have that as a panel. So with that, I'm going to hit record. Boom, wait for it. Don't